We have a special guest in the studio today. We're discussing a unique story. I wanted to bring in a local indie success in-house today and discuss how his business has led to developing podcasts that are not a focus of his industry, but jump into the passions of podcasting and how he's growing his audience. And we're covering a little bit about how you do that with SEO as well. I had to sneak that in there all today on The Edge.
Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. You're listening and watching Edge of the Web. Winners of Best Podcast from the Content Marketing Institute for 2017. Hear and see more at edgeofthewebradio.com. Now, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
All right, so welcome back to Edge of the Web Radio, episode 345. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks, CEO of Site Strategics and Edge Media Studios. Every week we bring you the cutting edge, get that? Cutting edge marketing, digital marketing tactics, as well as news of the week here at the show. We unpack a key marketing topic with our digital marketing audience and a deep dive with specialists in their field. And whether or not you're part of an agency or a freelancer or part of a firm that's doing marketing, this show's for you. So be sure to check out everything over at edgeofthewebradio.com. So let me give you the ropes of the show if you haven't been on the show before. Not been on the show, but haven't listened to the show or found us on all the different spaces in which we're broadcasting, welcome. We love to have you as a new audience member. So what we do is we go live regularly at 3 p.m. Eastern on Monday. Unfortunately, I was a little bit under the weather on that day. In fact, I was right next to the toilet, so probably shouldn't air that, but hey, it was difficult. So we had to move the show today. But what we do is we go live stream and then we actually swing back around and use our audio for podcasts and get it all into the different podcast aggregators such as Spotify, Player FM, obviously iTunes, but Overcast, all the different places in which you listen to your podcasts. And on top of that, we also take care of this content, get it into the show notes, as well as videos across the spectrum of the internet. So we try to give you everything that you're looking for in your space. So again, find all the information over at Site Strategic. edgeofthewebradio.com. And from there, also, let us know how we're doing in that space. So Edge of the Web is actually brought to you by Site Strategics. See, I was a little bit premature there. Site Strategics is the pioneer in agile digital marketing. Their core specialties are SEO, search engine optimization, SEM, search engine marketing, social media, conversion rate optimization, the omni-channel media broadcast of what we're doing as an example today. Everything is focused on results-based marketing. So if you're interested in what that means for you, it's really changing tactics based on the data that we get. Who knew, right? So jump over to sitestrategics.com. Let us know if you're interested in having a call. We'll have a free hour consultation and be able to unpack some of the possible factors that could improve your business right then and there. You can also call us at 877-736-4932 or SEO for Web if you want to actually spell it out on the keypad. And gosh darn it, I get annoyed, so I'm sure you do as well. So go over to edgeofthewebradio.com. In the studio booth, the production booth, we've got Jacob Mann, Studio Creative Director.
Hello. Good afternoon. Almost good morning. I don't know what's going on.
Wow. You've been in that booth too long, man.
That noon is right at that time where as you start to say it, you're not sure if you're saying the right thing or not. So, but I want to say, even though I'm sorry we didn't get to do this on Monday, I'm really glad you skipped because the rest of us have not had to skip work. It would not have been worth it.
Well, I mean, this was a good time to be able to have a test of our lunch broadcast, right?
Yeah.
See if the audience wants to jump in and watch a video while they're having lunch.
There you go. If you're East Coast. Yeah. West Coast, are they even at work yet?
No, they're
9?
not.
They're still, because I don't
Do we care about the West Coast? Of course we do. What am I saying? We care so much that we're bringing you some great guests. Just to do some housekeeping real quick, we've got Brittany Muller from Moz next Monday. You must check that out. We're going to be unpacking SEO in 2020. JD Prater from Quora PPC on the following week. Aaron Levy from Tunit. I never can pronounce that. Elizabeth Marshall will kill me. Tenuity. on the 23rd of March. Amy Bishop talking about PPC on the 30th of March. John Henshaw, a return guest, coming back from Coy Wolf on the 6th of April. If you're interested in being part of the show, just let us know at info@edgeofthewebradio.com. Let us know what you'd like to talk about, and we'll connect with you and see how well we can possibly fit you in. But we're always looking for some great subject matter experts, so let us know. Also, make sure you set the reminders on YouTube so you can see when we go live. Because we are doing a live stream, we can field questions from our audience. So if you know about this, jump in, because these are the moments that can really be some good quality content if you toss us a couple questions while we're doing the interview. And lastly, Edge fans, we want to make sure that we hear from you. We have a quick poll on edgeofthewebradio.com. It's completely anonymous. Let us know how we're doing and what you'd like to hear more of, whether it's talking about social media or thought leadership or SEM or SEO, advanced SEO, or, I don't know, tactical kills. Whatever you want, we can actually talk about on the show. So let us know. And it's, again, an anonymous poll. We'll not do anything with it. And give us some feedback if you could, because we want to hear from our audience. So go over to edgeofthewebradio.com and check that out. All right. So there's all the housekeeping notes for the week. We certainly want to recommend that you go over to the additional podcast to do with the show, the entire news update breakout, as well as the Google Updates breakout as well. So check that podcast out as we talk about that with Chuck Fields. But I want to introduce our industry expert in the field here in Indy. This is Chuck Fields to my left. How you doing, Chuck?
I am great, Aaron. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
You are more than welcome. Chuck, we go a way back, don't we?
Almost to the Stone Age.
Almost to the Stone Age.
Almost.
You sound like one of my kids. So we actually go back so far, and we were just talking about this before the show. We met actually connected to a particular job posting MP3 files on a website before the term podcast even existed.
2001.
2001, we were actually screwing around with audio.
Were you guys optimizing for Lycos or Ask Jeeves back then?
InfoSeek.
Was it even around? Ask Jeeves might have come after that. I'm not sure. That was crazy, but yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun, and we were publishing. I mean, it was very similar to what you've got going on today, but that was a radio show from our common employer, and
Yes.
we were just churning out content. So wow, I hadn't even remembered that. That was
Isn't that
really
crazy?
cool.
It probably planted the seed for how you and I are doing this today.
I think
isn't
so, exactly. So Chuck is a podcast aficionado. He's had a couple podcasts that we want to talk about. He also has a great company called SpaceTech Corp. So let me give you a rundown of who Chuck is and what he's doing. So he's been developing robust applications and designing databases for more than 20 years. Before that, he was actually a marketing director, helping businesses both nationally and internationally. He fell in love with web technology in 1997. I think that's about the time I did too. So we've run the same course a bit, transitioned to a full-time development, and then focused on automating business through programming smart data design. He actually now works with mid-sized companies and to streamline business processes, reduce the data errors, that is the human factor there, and eliminate bottlenecks. Good for you, because there's so much.
There are, and technology is getting more affordable, so we can make it a lot easier.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, combined with that, you're also running a couple different podcasts as well. You developed Online Coffee Break, your Online Coffee Break, as well as your Space Journey. I want to get to those in a minute.
Sure.
I certainly wanted to unpack the business side of this so we can actually dive into some key concepts of efficiency. But before anything else, give us your history in your words.
In my words, well, again, I actually started in marketing years and years ago. And when the web came along, again, the web wasn't always around,
Right.
especially when I went to college. I took some computer programming classes, but the web did not exist.
We had Gopher and
Yeah, I just remember my
IRC channels.
400 baud modem.
I can actually tell the tone of the 1200 and 4800, and my kids are just laughing because
impressive.
they'll actually send those signals to me. And
Your inner geekdom is showing. I love that.
it's terrible. Go ahead, keep on going.
The web came along, and being in marketing, of course, most companies of any reputation were saying, it's time for a website. So the CEO came to me and said, hey, marketing director, we need a website.
Right.
So, of course, we did what everyone else did. I don't know where to start. So we called some company, paid some outrageous fee for them to do a brochure website.
Yep.
And then after doing it for a while, I thought, well, let me tackle this because I got tired of paying for the updates, started doing it myself, taught myself HTML. And really what I guess the biggest kick is I worked for a bank back then. They were, of course, acquisition of many other banks, and they were growing like crazy. And so when we acquired banks, we thought, well, we had a call center. So all the new customers would call in with all these questions, and a lot of the questions were similar. And I thought, well, let's just do on our website, let's have the frequently asked questions. Let's drive them to that in the initial letters going out for them. And I mean, it was featured in Investment Banker magazine years ago, and it just was very successful. And for me, it's like that light bulb went off. I thought, wow, we can actually use this to improve the speed of technology to make things easier for our customers. And that's what sort of led me down the path of getting more and more into development.
So, I mean, so jumping from marketing, you certainly had a good swim in site development.
Yeah.
On the public side of things. So
exactly.
That's where we actually met each other, because we were actually running kind of in the same space, producing content and having really, I think you actually went into PMI project management, if I'm not mistaken. Were you?
I actually did not do that as much there, but it was always marketing and it was development. So it was like almost half and half at that point.
Got it.
And then just as the years went by, I got more and more into development, and then finally just kind of left that marketing field. Sort of. You can never really leave marketing field, okay?
Nope, you can't. It's kind of like The Godfather, right? It keeps on pulling you back.
Exactly.
So you cruised into the inner workings of business because you saw so many problems. And I think actually, I remember we worked on a couple jobs, and there was such I remember one in particular that was such a client-oriented bottleneck. There was just, we couldn't get past, we did some sizable customizations on the platform, and it was always a churn as soon as we brought those revisions back to the client. So, if it wasn't for clients, business would be perfect, right?
Right, but change is tough. And a lot of clients are very apprehensive about that. But you're right.
Absolutely.
You see the same mistakes going on and on over again. We still see it today. I still see it where, these sales teams bring back these Excel spreadsheets or handwritten pieces of paper, and someone's got to re-enter the data somewhere. It's like, well, why are you doing that? Double the data entry and that kind of thing. And so, I mean, I guess I get another thrill out of that too. If I can see a process and cut the staff time down by 30% to give them more productive things that they can focus on, that's a lot better. I always like that.
Oh, that's a laudable and sometimes sacrificing job there, because it's kind of the unsung hero for a lot of companies that don't know how to actually do it themselves. So you're kind of like forgive the analogy, you're almost like a trainer for these companies to be able to figure out where they can cut the fat, so to speak, and also be efficient. So you focus on back-end development.
Yes.
Usually working with clients to upgrade or rewrite their legacy systems.
Yes.
And let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
Because there are so many platforms that have gone the way of the dodo, right?
Oh, yeah.
Let alone Lotus Notes, right? We'll just reference that. But, I mean, you get in there and you're dealing with platforms that are not supported anymore.
Right.
And you actually have to make sense out of what they were using that for at the time, and then find a destination for them. So and you're cloud-based now, right?
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. There's one project I'm working on right now. They use Fox Pro application. That is way back. Again, it's 20 years old. And what's ironic about it and what's neat about it is the clients are still trying to use it after all this time, but obviously it's out of date. It's 20 years out of date. It's software installed on computers. It's sharing files. So when a computer goes down or you lose a file, they get corrupt errors and all that. So anyway, I'm rewriting it as a cloud application.
Got it.
And so we just had a demo with a client the other day for just the first prototype that we're almost ready to release. And of course they're blown away. I'm like, oh yeah, you can use this from any computer in the world. Just log in. Of course it's secure. We've got some tremendous security builder on it. That's a whole nother issue on it. But again, it's taking just that old legacy application that was in high demand and then re-engineering it and making it work for today's marketplace, I guess.
Again, it's a laudable thing, and there's a lot of scenarios in which you get into multiple ownerships from previous IT individuals that manage those platforms, and you find a heck of a lot of patchwork and peccadillos in there.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So
database issues is crazy.
Absolutely, and things that were well documented and things that you have to literally reverse engineer.
I don't think you ever get anything this well documented.
No. I'm just trying to put a little bit of hope.
You
out
might
there.
dream a little bit, but no, that's typically not the case.
But that's the whole point. Is that it's a kind of a core sampling back 20 years ago.
Right.
There's always a need for efficiencies, documentation, and process.
Yes.
Right. If you go by wing and prayer and just slap something together,
Oh,
obviously
you can't do that because you got to grow, and you know every place. I mean, that's the goal of the business, right? You want to just keep improving your efficiency, improve your customer relationships, and just keep everything growing. So yeah, you've got to document. You've got to build it to the point that I guess in the old days, you know, you had the waterfall methodologies. And I know you're familiar with Agile these days and all that stuff,
Right.
but you just can't just build something and stop. You got to build it so you can keep building it and keep going. It's like poetry; it's never quite done.
No, it never. It's job security, right?
Yes, that too.
So, what I wanted to take this to is another point of the business culture that makes these decisions, and how they are some of those adherences to old processes are kind of tough to be able to break away from C-suite individuals or what have you.
Yeah.
How do you help them understand what the benefits are from eliminating redundancy? Because I mean, an old dog. I mean, literally, they're wanting to repeat what they've known for such a long time.
You know what's ironic too? I totally agree with that, but there's also almost a distinction between the level of leadership. If you're at the CEO level, they see it, they understand.
Got it.
They're just like, how come we can't do this?
Yep.
And so those are the people that I like to speak with the most because they understand.
They'll
we can use
champion
it.
it, right.
They will champion it. Yeah.
Got it.
And probably the toughest part where I have to come in too is the users. You know, they're used to a certain technology. And my gosh, if you change, you know, you have say a web screen or whatever, and you got to make sure the tab order works.
Right.
And you've got to train them on, okay, this is how we do it now. So that's probably the largest effort is change and being a championship of trying to get people to understand this change is good, it's going to help, and again, you got to kind of ease into it.
Right. So there's a whole UX responsibility whenever
Absolutely.
you're actually doing the
And
internal
trainership
platform.
too.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of sloppiness in what platforms have been used over time, but we're in the era of SaaS. Everything's cloud-based, software as a service, right? So what are your observations about the focus of efficiency from business owners? You're talking about the CTOs and the CIOs that understand efficiency, and we're surrounded by the cloud inside of native apps, right? So everybody's kind of immersed in it, but then you go to work and you've got this legacy system. The focus of business owners and like I'm talking about the internal management, the ones that are a bit too tied to their legacy systems. How do you help them get by this or be able to process this? Because you do have internal champions, but how do you paint the picture of that value?
Well, it's basically taking their head out of the clouds, or I should say into the cloud, I guess. Is probably a better way.
There's the pun.
Yeah. Again, everyone wants it to be successful. You know, you want to have an efficient thing, and when you get, I guess, to that level, you've got to reach them, and sometimes you can just show them. They see competitors are using something, and they want to obviously stay up on that, and if anything, get ahead of the competitors out there. So I think showing them examples of what you can do, an actual visual example. I'm a very visual person.
Absolutely.
So again, showing that example, and there's a lot of statistics you can throw out too, and you can walk them through examples. But I mean, and one client in particular throw out probably again one of those other pivotal experiences is I had this web application we developed. Once we launched it, 30% cut of duties the employees had to do, just because of all those repetitive processes that they do. And no one likes working that way anyway.
Right.
You know, again, they didn't get laid off. They went on to bigger and better things like building the business.
Absolutely.
And another one, same thing that we first time we rolled out the first update to their going from Windows to a cloud-based application. We cut the equivalent of 2 full-time employees. Again, they didn't lay them off. They put them in better job duties.
Absolutely.
So once you, I guess, come into them and say, this can have a real impact, and you don't have to hold yourself back anymore. And you also, I guess you don't have to worry about, and I've seen a lot of clients get burned on this, where they work with a company, a consulting firm. I'm not saying all consulting firms are like this, but they get charged an arm and a leg, and the company takes forever to implement something. And that's where I guess I've come in, and some others like me, is I have a client contact me, and they've been working with a consultant agency for 2 years,
Right.
and they're paying out the leg, and they still haven't gotten the solution they need.
Wow.
And then I've come in and, okay, 6 months later, here you go.
Yeah, I think there's those type of businesses in every sector that
Unfortunately, yeah.
are predatory and they prey on ignorance.
Right.
And keep their clients ignorant.
Yeah, they
for
keep
their
them
benefit.
paying on that monthly basis.
Absolutely.
Oh, you want this fixed? Okay, well, it's going to charge you X much. Well,
Right.
why didn't it work in the first place?
And that, that's the bane of all industries, is that
Right.
that type of factor. Getting back to it, we are in this SaaS environment, so there's also something else that I was thinking about.
Yeah.
It's very easy now the cost of entry into these platforms is much lower than
Absolutely. A lot of open source code out there right now.
Absolutely. So it's also would I be accurate to say that there's potentially some kid in the candy store kind of concept is, hey, yeah, that looks good, that looks good, that looks good. And all of a sudden, those same C-suites are now making good buying decisions on, $500 a month software, and we're going to have you over here. And then they have these disparate spaces that look like there's efficiency platforms, but they're now buying so many of these that they're not integrated, they're not working, and they're looking for, hey, I need a solve here, and they're not looking into the software that they currently have. They're just reaching out because it's so easy to find that solution. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, and that's probably where I've come in again. A lot of cookie cutter solutions out there,
Right.
Off the shelf. Hey, grab this, it'll work. A lot of those same clients have come to me and said, listen, this just isn't working for us. We're paying this huge monthly fee on this.
Right.
And I'm like, we can do this so much easier, and you don't have to worry about the pain on that. And again, you build it, and if you build it right, which we always aim to do, it's going to be something you can always add on to. So you can always start with phase one, and which usually gets rid of all the redundancies and gets rid of that one thing that cookie cutter solution couldn't do, or that off-the-shelf solution couldn't do unless you paid the extra for this
Right.
plugin or whatever
Right.
you need to do on that. So yeah, you can always enhance things.
So you can also find yourself, as you come in as a consultant, you can help them cut costs of just the errant buys of software that have
yes.
never been embraced, but they're still on the
Again,
on the
and
balance
you
sheet.
can't blame them either, because sometimes they're a desperate decision. You want to keep business going,
Right.
and oh, this sounds good at this time, so
Right.
you buy it. And
It's
then
reactive
you're stuck with
purchasing.
it. Exactly.
Right. So what about the next step along this journey as these businesses buy that software, or even consult and have a custom environment developed, and then they poorly train the talent or the employees on that? Do you see that as a regular factor?
Yeah, that's more, it goes back to where I would associate it as sort of the resistance to change. I think one of the most important things of deploying anything is you've got to get that user buy-in.
Yep.
Who is the end user, and how are they affected by this? And they've got to be the new champions of the system.
Absolutely.
So I mean, that's what we have to do, and that's what other companies need to do, is make sure the users who are going to be using this day in, day out are not only very familiar with how it works, but also that they like it.
Do you sometimes poll or involve the employees on part
All the
of?
time.
Do you?
All the time.
So all of a sudden now you're getting buy-in and ownership of, so to speak, of the product, and what a gratifying factor that would be for
And
employees.
it's important too, and that's, I guess that's a great thing about cloud. We just deployed a major application upgrade yesterday for a client, and of course, we're asking, before we went live, we're literally asking a couple of the employees, okay, try this out. What do you think of this? What do you think of this? And then we literally had one employee that said, this would be easier at this one point. I'm finding a bottleneck here. So I'm on site. So I walked to the other room and I actually added that feature, and we deployed it immediately, went back, how was that? And then they're fine.
Wow.
So I mean, that's how quickly you can respond with cloud applications. You could not have done that with a legacy application.
No. Especially if you've got different version controls. You've
Exactly.
got to pull things out of source safe, and I'm dating myself right there.
That's okay.
All right, so quickly, we want to let our audience know that if you're wanting to go listen to us live, be sure to hit that bell and get reminded for the live broadcast of Edge, because we certainly want to be able to have interactions with our audience. So that's a great segue to kind of this next piece that I wanted to unpack with you. It's about how quickly things can get deployed now, and there are different methods of execution to be able to get it done. long dead, hopefully, are the long burn project cycles where you're waiting 6 months to a year to be able to see the first iterations.
And here it is, yeah.
Exactly. So, but we do recall those environments. I remember with the company that we were working on together, is that literally there was a client that hadn't seen the product roll out for about a year and a half because they were working on so many different features and functions. So along comes iterative working and iterative project management. So you're a champion of these type of deployment practices. Can you unpack some of the things that you've experienced and what your thoughts are on maybe your choice execution?
Sure. By that, I assume you're kind of going down the methodology path a little bit more on that. And of course, I do like Agile methodology.
Cool.
Although I do have some things to point out about that.
Uh-huh.
I very seldom have come across a company that does it right.
It's a buzzword. They're using it
It's
as
a hot word. Oh, we do Agile. You do? How long are your stand-up meetings? Oh, about an hour.
Nope, not Agile.
No, not Agile. How often do you release? That kind of thing. So Agile methodology is really good. I do like that. I like the small iterations. I like getting employees involved so they can see the solution as it's being developed and before it, user acceptance testing is a very important factor of it. But there's a methodology that I absolutely love that I don't see gets much press, and I understand it's kind of hard.
Now, hold on, before you do that.
Oh, sure.
Well, let our listeners know these are digital marketers who may not actually know the Agile method. Unpack that in 2 minutes, what Agile is to our listeners.
Oh, man, I bet you could do it much better than I can. But Agile methodology is a lot different than the old methodologies of, say, Waterfall, where you meet with the client, you find out what all their needs are, then you develop a solution, you spend months, years even in some cases, and say, here it is, here's waterfall methodology. Agile says, we need to find out what features we can do in this, say, 2-week time period.
Yep.
And then let's meet with the developer, let's get the project manager in here, let's get user in there, and let's do this iteration and meet with it frequently every day, do like a 10-minute update. And then in 2 weeks, we roll out that release. And meanwhile, before it's even rolled out, you're sort of moving on to the next iteration. So you're doing things in increments.
Right.
So you're not waiting for some massive release. You're constantly, here's 1.1, here's 1.2, here's 1.3, or 1.01, whatever.
Right.
So you're constantly upgrading. So again, the application never is finished, which is great because it shouldn't be, not in this day and age, but you can do small increments of it and just keep getting better. So after a year, you've got maybe entirely new features that could not have been thought of. And you can accomplish them quicker and better and faster. And again, if you have bugs that are introduced along the way, of course you try to squash those, but you can immediately get those out with another iteration because you're deploying every 2 weeks.
It's
or every
reactive, and so it's actually a reactive use case, but it's also very gratifying to be able to see something roll out very quickly.
Exactly.
Then you have the buyer or the product manager of that very, very happy about that particular piece, and then that actually inspires revisions of those over time, right?
Yeah, and then for companies too, you could have different champions in the company. You could have your marketing team, your sales team, your business management team, or whatever, and they can each have their own features that are coming out, and they don't have to wait quite as long for them.
Yeah, exactly, because if they have to wait 3 months because something else is in line, now you actually have different lanes in which they can all be rolled out. So that's a really good wrap-up of Agile, and there are challenges. There's a discipline of Agile, right? And like we said, there's misunderstandings and there's a buzzword mentality, but overarching, it is good to be able to see different methods starting to rise up out of traditional waterfall long burn projects. Now, what's your favorite?
It really depends on the situation, but the one I really like is called Rapid Application Development, or RAD. And it's been around for a while too.
Yep.
But what I do with that one, in particular for one of my clients, is I sit with the CTO side by side, and we literally can do more in 3 hours than I've seen other companies do in months, quite honestly.
Okay.
We can roll out an entire component in 3 hours.
Wow.
Because it's intense programming. It honestly, it wears me out.
So you're literally doing live programming right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're navigating with that sponsor, with that CTO.
Yeah. And now we're not always deploying it after 3 hours, but we can do so much. Then I've seen other teams that just take forever to do this stuff, and we can be reactive because again, he understands his company's business models.
Right.
He understands the database too. I understand the database, and I understand how to code efficiently.
Right.
So together, we're just this ultimate team. As a matter of fact, every time we meet, which is several times a week, I start off the day saying, "Okay, how can we change the world today?"
There you go.
Walk in, and we do.
So,
a lot of fun.
So at the core of this is user feedback.
Yes.
Is that it's rapid deployment of small iterations, but it's also combined with immediate user feedback while you're developing it, and that's a key
Yeah,
factor
because you're not
there.
in a silo anymore. He understands the business needs. This
Right.
is where our need is.
Right.
How can we accomplish that?
Right.
And then, so again, that takes out, if you have a consulting firm that you're working with, you take that element out of it because they're developing based on what they think your needs are. But we're developing based on what their needs actually are.
And you know what happens here is all of a sudden the veil is lifted, and what companies were charging, right,
Yes.
for ubiquitous concepts, all of a sudden the transparency is there that, guess what, it wasn't that difficult at all. And I mean, that's where the radical change happens because you got to be able to not only be on your game, but also be as transparent as possible going, hey, this is not a $2,000 effort. This is working with you sitting down, maybe $750. This type of connection to your client is an incredible build of trust, and on top of it, they also can understand how complex things are. So now they're alongside with you going, damn, I didn't realize that moving that around affected these different things.
Yeah, and one thing that's really fascinating about that too is this particular client that I'm giving an example of, I will be at their location. So if the CTO has a business question that he's not sure of, literally we'll have the CEO in that'll come in seconds and we'll solve that problem. Or we'll have one of the staff that's in charge of a certain department. If we have a question, we can actually have them come in, show them what we're working on, and get the immediate feedback right there before we implement anything.
Got to have the right company that's willing to be able to.
It is a very hard fit. That's
Right.
the advantage of Agile, is that you can apply that model if you apply it correctly. You can apply that to a wide variety of businesses, if not
Gotcha.
all businesses. So rapid application development, RAD, is a little bit more special.
Very good. Well, one more step regarding the core element of RAD, which is user feedback. Feedback affects the success of the project.
Absolutely.
Right. So can feedback get noisy at times, and can it actually distract? Because all of a sudden you're letting the spigots open, and we've had the experiences, we all have, that you start getting that client involved in that level of building.
Oh, yes.
Now their entrepreneurial mind or their innovation mind kicks in. Hey, wish list. Wouldn't this be great? Wouldn't this be great? It's like a carnival.
Scope creep.
Exactly.
Oh my
exactly.
gosh. Oh yeah.
So they got to be disciplined as well. So you're
Yes.
really kind of training them as an employee of, okay, fence it in. And that's also a whole nother challenge right now. So you're really changing culturally the client that you're working with. So are there challenges there?
Well, yeah, there always are challenges because, like you said, anything is possible. And as a matter of fact, I always kind of chuckle when someone says, "Can we do this?" And even before I hear what this is, I'm like, "Yeah, we can do whatever you want, but let's be efficient about it." And it does require discipline. And most, I guess, I find once you get to the C level, I've ran into a few that might be, full of ideas,
Right.
but most of them are right in, this is what we need, and I understand this will add time, or we need this by this point, so switch your priority to this right now.
Very good.
And they're good with that. So yeah, that's something you kind of have to feel your way through.
There's so much baggage on the other side not doing this type of process because you have unspoken expectations
Yes.
that never get answered, and you've got sometimes mistrust of how long certain things take. You get them involved there, and all that goes away, and
Yes.
over time you're honing a very well-oiled and very efficient delivery. So
Plus, it improves your relationship with the
Absolutely.
consultant too, because again, you're working on that. It's more transparent.
Yep.
They can see what you're doing. They can see the timeline. They can see deliverables coming through, as opposed to, here's this project. here's, we'll send you a check when this part is done, and then you just sit back and wait, and then it's not done the way you want it to, or it doesn't work the way you want it to, and then you got to go back to the drawing board.
Well, on top of that, yes, it solidifies that relationship, and it protects from other vendors trying to dislodge you by trying to put a apples to apples. Well, what are they doing? Oh, you don't know everything about this. Well, we do this. If they're in lane with you, they're bought in, and they fully understand the efforts and the complexities and what have you. So there's nowhere near a challenge opportunity.
Right.
If the client doesn't understand the aspects of what you're doing, then they're at risk of going someplace else where there is a nice, bright, shiny something over here that's being put in front of them.
Exactly.
You got to bring the client into that relationship. All right. Quickly, we want to make sure that our listeners join the Edge newsletter. So if you go over to edgeofthewebradio.com, you can join it right now. It's a free of charge newsletter, of course, and we're bringing you all the show notes, everything in the show, as well as interview insights, as well as some of the links to the news articles that we cover. And we won't use your email for anything but sending you digital nuggets of gold. So you can also text to the number 22828, the word Edge Talk, and be able to join right there. Do not do it while you're driving, please. But we'd love for you to join the Edge Nation as we are continually unpacking some great concepts here. All right. Third topic that I want to cover with you, Chuck.
Ooh, good.
And I honestly believe we could probably do this for hours.
What's
just saying. Just rolling with some of the things that you've experienced.
Okay, good.
But here's a 90-degree turn on it, maybe a 180-degree. All right. So most companies, I mean, we understand that podcasting is just a growth environment right now.
Yes.
And what you've done is a good deal different than most here. And again, this is a radical departure from what we were just talking about. So forgive me to jump in, but I do got to unpack this thing. You've rolled out several podcasts that tie to your passions.
Right.
And that are not directly related to your industry whatsoever. And that is such an anomaly, so to speak, because they're seeing so many industry, so many organizations and individuals that are using podcasting to promote their business, be able to promote their authority in their space. I mean, we do this on this show, right? How did you choose? You didn't do that. You actually stepped way off the boat.
Yeah, the typical Chuck style. Actually, I started that way.
Okay.
The first 10 or so episodes, I was at a place in business where I had a lot of clients asking the same questions over and over again. They were asking about cybersecurity.
Right.
They were asking about web development, a lot of the topics we've talked, methodologies. And so I decided, I felt prompted. I just wanted to just get the word out, and I thought, oh, how come all these clients are asking me the same thing? If I could just get this out to help others, that would be great. So the first 10 or so episodes were all about IT and all about my business. But then
things changed.
Yeah. As most podcasters are, you have these great expectations for, I don't know, thousands of downloads and quitting your day job and taking over, or just a flood of clients coming in. Maybe I'm impatient. Maybe I'm not. After a couple of months, I just wasn't feeling that it was satisfying. And I remember going on vacation with my wife, and she had said, the title of my podcast was Online Coffee Break at the time. And she said, it is an online coffee break. You can talk about anything you want. And I had incidentally just met with my business coach right before the trip. And she said, what is your passion? I said, well, I love space. I love astronomy. I just love it. So we're on vacation. My wife says that to me, and I'm like, you're right. And I said, there's this one astronaut that I sort of know that I'd like to reach out to. So after that little conversation, I walked inside from the beautiful Florida weather, and I emailed the guy. And it happened to be Dr. Story Musgrave. He was an astronaut. He was actually on Home Improvement with Tim Allen several years back. And I asked him, I said, I'd love to interview you. And within 5 minutes, he said, sure, that'd be great. Okay. So I get back from just a few days later. I'm back, and I actually emailed Scott Kelly, the astronaut. He spent a year in space.
Okay.
About his new book that just came out. And so when I got back from vacation, I got an email from his agent that said, yeah, he can do it. He's available in 2 hours. So I was, needless to say, I wasn't going to turn that opportunity. I ran home, grabbed the microphone and my podcast recorder, went back to the office, and I had my first real live interview podcast with astronaut Scott Kelly, and then the next day with Story Musgrave, and then
I bet you were starstruck.
I was starstruck. Yes,
Get the double
I
entendre?
do. I get that. Of course, my company's called SpaceTech Corporation, so that's where the space interest came. But yeah, it just started opening up the door, and I thought, well, who else do I want to speak with? And I just started reaching out, and I just, again, when you follow your passion, and I'm a Christian, and I believe in the power of prayer, and I did a lot of praying on that, and I just felt compelled that this is the direction I was meant to go, and I started reaching out, and I don't get 100% response rate for anyone I ask, but at that time, it seemed that everyone I asked said yes.
Wow.
And we expanded up. I ended up talking with several people, and I don't know, 100 or plus so episodes later, it has opened the door to some amazing opportunities. I've been not only NASA, I've been on site for several rocket launches. I mean, as regular media with camera on the launch pad, which is cool. I've also met some very fantastic people, not only at NASA, but also in the music industry. I met Dr. Brian May.
Yes, you did.
Queen, if you like Queen. Who'd have thought? If someone had told me years ago that I would have not only spoke with Brian May on the phone for a great 15-minute conversation while he was in the UK, but also a week later meeting him,
in person,
shaking his hands. Yeah, it was awesome.
I had a bit of FOMO, not FOMO. I had a bit of jealousy right there. That was too cool of an interview, and just to be able he's such a smart guy.
Oh my gosh, really smart. Really, just again, I guess I can't say he reminds me of me. It's just what I like about him, because I have nothing in common with him. I'm not near as smart or as creative, but left brain and right brain.
Yeah,
he's very creative and he's very smart, because he's also an astrophysicist, which is really cool. So yeah, meeting him was just phenomenal. But I've also met Earth, Wind, and Fire, Angela Cartwright, one of our biggest episodes. She's the original Penny Robinson from Lost in Space, and I feel like I'm plugging this. But I could go just on and on about these fantastic people that I just want to have a conversation with them. And I thought the best way, a lot of people want autographs from these celebrities, and I thought, well, if I could have a conversation with them and then get to share it with my friends, that's just the ultimate to me. So it's become a lot of fun.
It certainly sounds like it. And just for our listeners, understanding Chuck's diversity of topics, obviously astronomy and space. But books, Christianity, comedy, finance, health and body, inspiration, marketing, military, music, podcast, science fiction, software tips, TVs and movies,
all over the place.
All over the place. It's like a giant Jelly Belly jar, right?
Yeah, but it's evolved. Like anything, being the marketer in me kind of came out after a while and noticed, I seem to get a lot of hits on space and entertainment. Entertainment being, TV, music, movies, that kind of thing. So I have sort of evolved the Online Coffee Break podcast to be more entertainment focused.
Okay.
With some space elements in. Last year, I was pleased that it actually got nominated as a top 10 for the People's Choice Podcast Awards for the science category. So obviously I thought, well, science is doing really good. So that's why I decided to do a spin-off podcast, focus on space, called Your Space Journey, which I just launched last November.
All right. So before anything else, Jacob, I want to actually pull out a couple sound bites. Let's get the intro for the Online Coffee Break first.
Welcome to your Online Coffee Break, where we discuss bite-sized topics that inspire, educate, and entertain. Here's your host, a software innovator, award-winning marketer, and astronomy and space buff, Chuck Fields.
Cool.
And here I am.
And there you are. Now, and let's pivot around to your space. You don't mind. This is copyright infringement, is it?
Not at all.
So let's go to the other show.
Welcome to Your Space Journey, where we venture into the future of space exploration and the incredible leaders who are taking us there. Here's your host, Chuck Fields.
Very cool. So well produced. Some really good intro. So, I mean, there's a level of podcast production that you achieved. You're also putting together some formulaic, so you're actually getting some call-ins from different space buffs and professionals in that industry. So it's very well done, very well produced.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. But
an important step in podcasting.
Oh my gosh, you better believe it.
It's overlooked way too much.
I would wholeheartedly agree. But staying in that passion, staying in your interest,
You've got to.
you then get into so many authentic conversations as opposed to any type of feigned interest just to be able to get somebody in that's got a particular name,
Yes.
right? So what have you found in yourself as you really kind of unpack that passion project, so to speak,
Sure.
of just about yourself and possibly ideas about interviewing?
Well, I think what intrigues me, I think everyone has a neat story about themselves. And what really fascinates me is when I find someone who I admire, I think this is a really successful person. I want to, what made them? Where did their passion come from?
Right.
And so I always start off, say, if it's space, where did your space passion come from? If it's music, when did you first start learning to play the guitar or sing? And movies about acting, that kind of thing too. So it fascinates me just about the person. I want to hear their story. And I also want to hear what's human about them. What were their struggles? What they have trouble with? And I guess probably the key factor that I've done is I also keep my conversations relatively short. When I originally started this, it was for busy business executives. So I wanted to keep it short, like an online coffee break, like 15, 20 minutes or whatever like that. So I always kept the conversation short. And it amazes me how much you can really, I feel like you get to know a person in 15 minutes or so for these particular ones. So it
Now,
just astounds me.
you cut it short for what particular reason?
I cut it short initially because the online coffee break seemed to be that format. I wanted to stick with the coffee break, and I guess being a manager, I didn't want to say, if employees, I don't want them taking hour-long coffee breaks.
Right.
So I felt like it'd be a disservice to the community if I went too long for the coffee break. So I want the employees to come back from their coffee break and say, hey, I just went an online coffee break. It was great. It was 15 minutes. I don't want the boss going, hey, you were gone 43 minutes. So for that particular, I know. So I didn't want to cause any ruckus there.
And it is actually well known in podcast stats now that literally these snackable pieces are easily consumable, right? And their commute podcasts, their workout podcasts.
Exactly.
There's a promise that you're making to the user that this is all you need to spend because
Or they're binge worthy too.
absolutely.
You can go to one, oh, hey, find another musician. Or let's
potato
listen.
chips,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly.
So you got there. How do you keep on getting these great interviews? Because these are incredible individuals. There we go. It's Providence. It truly is.
It really is amazing to me. Quite honestly, I guess the other thing that surprised me is the online coffee break. It's been going on for a while. We just did 111th episode, so we're not near as up to 345 like you guys are. It almost went on autopilot. I literally have companies reaching out
That's awesome.
to interviews, and I unfortunately probably have to turn away more than I can accept. But I mean, I remember the first time that happened. It was Earth, Wind, and Fire. Their representative reached out and said, can we interview Earth, Wind, and Fire? I'm like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
Yes, I can. I'll squeeze it into the schedule.
Let me see if I can get it on my calendar.
Yeah,
of
and
course.
I've had that happen more than once, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. So yeah, I'd be happy to speak with you.
That's awesome. Well, congrats on your success there.
Thank you. Good Lord above.
Absolutely. No, we've got to give him credit. And thanks. How do you find as you're interviewing the astronomy and space industry, man, you got to be on your game from a technical level as well.
Oh yes.
So did this also really deepen your knowledge and take you into whole nother levels of understanding in this industry?
Yeah, it really did, because there's some people out there that do some really good space podcasts, and they focus on the technologies behind it. There's one, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, one of my heroes out there. Very nice guy. I've met him several times. And he can tell you every detail about the Falcon Heavy or SpaceX or even Rocket Labs and just every rocket imaginable.
Wow.
I realized that's not my skill set. I have a passion for space exploration. I think the universe is amazing. When I look up, I see worlds.
You got some killer telescopes, by the way, too.
I just acquired 2 more. Yeah, it's really my wife has been wonderfully blessing in that situation. My whole office, you should see it. It has telescopes everywhere. It's kind of one for each unique purpose. Yeah, so I do like looking up. I do like space, but I learned I just need to focus on where my passion is, where my interest is, where my skill level is. But I I'm not going to pretend to know something. If I don't know something, I will ask. That's why I have the guests on there, because they can tell me their expertise far better than I can fake it. So I don't want to fake it. I want to become genuine.
Yeah, because those guys can sniff out if you're trying to play along.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very
so
good. Very good. So obviously this is a true passion of yours.
Yes.
Would you recommend this to individuals if they're entertaining podcasting to go kind of non sequitur out of their industry?
I think, it comes down to several things on that. You've got to find your passion.
Yep.
And I understand if you want to start it for your business, that is wonderful. That is commendable. Again, that's where I started, and that's where you've done, and you've had tremendous success at it. And I congratulate you on that.
Appreciate it.
But like you said, it comes down to several factors. You've got to set your goals up front. If you just want to talk about a subject or something that fascinates you, that's great.
Right.
But just because you can press the record button doesn't mean your listener's going to press the play button.
Oh, snap.
You've got to make sure that content is worthy of being listened to. So you've got to think about your audience. It can't be just all about you. You can't just sit there with your buddy and talk. Well, you can. And if that's what you want, that's fine. But if you want people to find you and you want more downloads or whatever goal is, you've got to make sure the content is worthy of your audience.
And it's not just you looking at yourself in the mirror and actually saying, yes, it is.
Right.
Got to be able to try it out. You've got
to test it.
Got to be open for feedback as well.
That's probably one of the hardest things. I did that a lot at first too, and it's tough because again, it's your baby. It's you've dedicated all kinds of time to it.
Right.
And you get this out, it does make you a little bit vulnerable. I mean, it's hard too. I remember, the first time I did it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is my voice. Who likes the sound of their voice? I don't. And then once again, if you're watching right now, YouTube, that was another big, I'm like, really? I'm going to show this mug on the air? Oh my gosh. So once you get over that and realize, for the most part, people in this world are good. And again, if it's content, it's not focused on me.
Right.
It's focused on what we can supply them. So yeah.
Got it. All right. Well, let's quickly shift gears into promotion of podcasts as well, because our listeners are certainly marketers, and as much as we implore them to find their passion, we also they got to get that out there. So what efforts have you done to actually promote your podcast?
Well, that was an area that almost burned me out, quite frankly, at first, because it's hard to get the word out. You have 800,000 podcasts out there right now. Fortunately, according to Daniel Lewis, Audacity Podcast, another one of my ones that I love to listen to, he said through some software that he designed, he said it comes out to about 125,000 active podcasts going on. So your competition isn't quite as much.
What does active mean?
Active means they posted within the last month.
Got it. All right.
I think that was according to his stat. So there is some competition out there, but there's also some old podcasts where they might have been series where they've wrapped up, but people are still listening to them.
Right.
On a side note on that, I just want to say, this is just some weird statistic I just came across. If you're so concerned about downloads, it really can be so cyclical that you have no idea where it came from. I told you, I mentioned Angela Cartwright. Those of you of my generation, you might remember she was the original Penny Robinson, Lost in Space. I interviewed her a year and a few months ago about Lost in Space and Sound of Music. Netflix, as you know, came out with their second season of Lost in Space at the end of December.
Which was epic, by the way.
So 13 months later, all of a sudden her interviews or her views jumped 25,000 for the month of January.
Wow.
Again, that was way more than it initially had.
Yep.
So you never know. Even after shows releasing, people are like, oh, okay, after the first month, how many do you have? My subjects are all over the place. It depends on what's going on in the market on that. So don't get hung up on downloads. If you do, you'll get terribly depressed when you first launch this thing because it takes a long time to build up.
There's a discipline, and you got to stick with it. But there are certain strategies that you want to actually deploy, and we cover SEO on a regular basis, obviously. So I wanted to first lead with SEO. Some key things that we would recommend, but I certainly would love to have your input in choosing keywords. Going into the interview of what you're trying to actually anchor to.
Right.
Would you use that as a strategy, not as a disauthentic or inauthentic way of marketing, but are you going to try and get to those particular phrases naturally? I
haven't really thought about the phrases as I'm interviewing a person, but I guess when it comes up with the interview itself, I don't know if this is selfish or not, but sometimes I do look at it going, is this person popular? Is this going to be in high demand? how many social followers do they have?
Right,
Are they active on their social accounts? And that's no guarantee either, because in my case, once I interview a person, I have no guarantee that they're going to share it.
Right.
I have no guarantee that their audience is going to embrace it and listen to it as well.
Right.
So in that aspect of it, you want to kind of see, okay, play the social media game. I don't really want to call it a game, I guess. But is this person going to help? Is this topic of interest in the area? Is it trending?
Right. Is it trending?
Right now, that's kind of a big issue. When it comes down, I guess for me, for SEO, that's when it comes down to the actual show notes that I'm doing and the actual title itself.
Exactly.
Which is a whole nother ball game for me.
Yes, sir. So, I mean, if you're doing an SEO podcast, you really don't want to talk about SEO podcast too much. For example, if you actually use SEO podcast in that SEO podcast show multiple times talking about SEO podcast, you could actually be keyword stuffing.
Yes.
SEO podcast.
SEO podcast. There we go. Three voices now. There we go.
We hit our density. We can move on now. Just kidding. All right. So optimizing the feed as well, making sure, and that goes so undiscovered as podcasters roll that out. Give us some dimensions of what you should caretake in the feed itself.
Yeah, I'm going to say something first real quick, though.
SEO podcast?
Before SEO podcast. The number one thing you can do that will actually put it right ahead of SEO podcast, seven out of 10 people, I heard this from Dave Jackson, School of Podcasts, another great guy.
Cool.
7 out of 10 people find out about a podcast through word of mouth.
Yeah.
So that's why every podcast in it, you should encourage your listeners to share the episode.
Absolutely.
And on your posts, encourage them to share that. So that's first and foremost. But yeah, title is incredibly popular, and that's an incredibly important place that so many people blow that. Yeah, you've got to keep it short and pithy, but you've also got to have keywords in it as well. You've got to emphasize those in content. So that is important. And I wish, I probably didn't initially spend as much time on that part of it as I need to. I focused more in the beginning on social media, getting the word out, Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. And incidentally, I don't know if you experienced this, but Instagram, I cannot correlate posts on Instagram with listens or views on my episodes. It's negligible for me. I don't know what the deal is. I always thought it was because I get lots of likes on some of the posts, but Instagram for me, I'm still questioning, is that a viable?
I don't think so. I think it is for awareness, but it's not for a direct download because they're not in it.
They're in it to look at pictures.
Right, exactly. So any XML changes in the feed itself that you came across that would be beneficial?
Yeah, there was one that I came across just last spring. I have WordPress and I use something called PowerPress for my posts. And in that there's an author field that you can go into. And I hadn't been using that field on that. So I always enter my authors from, I went back to all my episodes and have them in there. You cannot neglect that field.
No.
It's so important. If you go to iTunes, I say SpaceX. I did several episodes on SpaceX. If you go to iTunes and you type SpaceX as you're searching, I come up as number, I don't know, like 5, 6, 8 for some of my episodes. And I think that's funny because there are actually podcasts out there that are dedicated exclusively to SpaceX, but obviously they're probably not taking advantage of that field. So again, the author field. It doesn't mean you as an author, you can put your guest in there or even your topic.
That actually is a nice tip right there.
Yeah,
absolutely. So content curation, utilize the content in multiple ways, especially the video. I mean, with your shows, you're doing videos first.
Yes,
and producing those well produced videos. So taking that audio, using that as the predominant audio piece for the podcast. So you're killing two birds with one stone. Very similar to what we do over here.
Well, you guys were kind of an inspiration for that too. And so some others were too. And I think that was one of the things when I was researching how can I get more downloads, more of an audience. Someone said, well, turn on your webcam.
There you go.
And it is amazing. There's a huge audience out there in a YouTube world that it's in demand. And again, if your content is something people want to watch, let's get the word out so they can find you on
Absolutely. So just to wrap up, what we would also recommend is social promotions, getting the podcast out to all the different aggregators, transcribing, even writing some contests or things like that.
Absolutely.
Getting some traction out there. So doing live stream, doing audio. I mean, you can't do everything at once, but if you're hitting all the lanes in the omni-channel, right, then you're going to hit somebody where they are in their consumption layer, right?
Yep. Just focus on your end goal and don't get overwhelmed. You can do
Very
it.
good. Very good. Wow, I appreciate that breakdown. Sorry weren't able to spend that much time on the promotion side. I really wanted to dig into the business and just how you got to that space of understanding what you really wanted to talk about as opposed to being tied to trying to market the business. That's an awesome thing. Swinging back around to kind of finish up here, what bugs you about your industry right now?
Probably the lack of security. Okay,
we locked you in here whenever you came in.
Oh, good. Okay. Not that kind of security.
Okay.
I should say cybersecurity.
Yep.
Just I've seen so many clients that I don't know if they don't take it seriously, but they're using simple passwords and they're not taking advantage of what we call multi-factor authentication on that. And what that is, I mean, 2FA, your users might know what that is. I mean, basically, you have three kinds of authentications. One is something that says what you know, like your password. Second is like something you have, like your phone. And third is something you are, like your face or your fingerprint.
Right.
And in this day and age, it's amazing how many, I guess, just hackers are out there all the times going after sites, and you've just got to make sure you're more secure. And so a lot of companies forget this and they get hacked. And there's a headline every few weeks of talking about a data breach or that kind of thing. And none of my clients have ever been hacked yet. We're hoping that never happens, but you've got to stay up on that.
Yeah,
and if
you do have to have a mitigation strategy when it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Not if.
Yes, it will happen. You just have to be defended.
All right. Well, conversely, what excites you about your industry right now?
Oh my gosh.
Besides space.
It's almost overwhelming. There's so much technologies out there. It's changing at the speed of light, and there's always something you can do. I love how you can really accomplish anything now. You know, you don't have to have a big company or a big IT budget to accomplish what would have deemed impossible years ago.
Yeah,
it's amazing. If you focus, you can accomplish anything.
There you
Isn't that
go.
a quote from Back to the Future?
I think so.
Yeah, that was it.
Congrats on the getting the award for top 10 nominee for
Thank
the People's
you.
Choice Award. That's fantastic. Congrats on the success of the podcast, and we applaud you for following your passion, because it's kind of a road less traveled, and you're finding some great success there. So congrats on that. We'll certainly lift you up from where we are. Let us know how else we can actually help you. We're certainly going to give our listeners go over to onlinecoffeebreak.com and look at the episodes. Certainly subscribe there. Yourspacejourney.com, as well as Chuck's own site, SpaceTech Corp. Is there anything else that we can promote for you today?
No, just again, if you're looking for another podcast, just in addition to this one, maybe you do want to take a short break, just go to Online Coffee Break. We do have our space episodes on there as well, so that's a great place just to go and kind of chill out for a few minutes.
All right, so we want to make sure our listeners actually dial into the news podcast that we did on the show with Chuck. It'll probably be out tomorrow, I think. Also, follow Chuck and his social Online Coffee Break, Online Coffee BRK at Twitter, and Space Journey Now on Twitter. Facebook is Online Coffee Break. Chuck Fields on LinkedIn, as well as Instagram, Online Coffee Break, and Your Space Journey. Any final thoughts for our audience, either efficiencies or passion podcasting?
Well, again, if you're a company and you're just you see that you have bottlenecks and you know there's ways to do things better, just reach out. Whether it's to me or to Aaron, you know, we've got some great technology leaders in this community and around that can definitely help you save time, save money, do things right, do things efficiently, and grow your business.
And ethically. How about that?
So important. See, it's so close to me. I just don't even consider that anything different. But yeah, that's very important.
It's still out there, and it's a briar patch. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Chuck. We appreciate you coming in. It's been great to be able to catch up with you, and we got to do that more often. It's been a while since we saw it.
Way too long, but thank you for this opportunity.
More than welcome. All right. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel over at Edge of the Web. Just search that. You'll be able to find it. If you're really feeling up to it today, why don't you go over to the iTunes platform and give us a review, because you know what? That's some of the optimization that we need to have to give our show lift. We certainly appreciate all of our listeners and our followers and all the different platforms. Go over to see all the must-see videos as well as insider information over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. Sign up for the newsletter. It's free of charge, and it's great information coming straight into your inbox. Next week, we're going to be talking to Brittany Muller of Moz, and that's always a great conversation, talking AI. We've talked AI and business learning before. Well, now we're going to talk about SEO in 2020 right from one of the key advocates over at Moz. So that's going to be fantastic. Remember, don't be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.